So that's why it's very frustrating for me.
Well, as an expert on computer problems, Jillian, as we start the show, thank you. I want to give everybody an update. After 6 days of being at the Apple Store, apparently sitting on the shelf, they finally discovered that, lo and behold, the hard drive did crap out. And of course, I called up the chain of command, and Apple did not help. So until I can afford to buy a solid state hard drive for my MacBook Pro, which is 3 years old and is on its third hard drive. You can tell I'm trying to dissuade everybody from ever buying an Apple.
Is that Tim Cook? Is he the top dog?
Yeah, I don't know who it is, but whoever's the head of Apple, your company sucks. It really does. Sorry. So we've lost any chance of them being a sponsor for the Hockey Buzzcast. Okay. For our pre-show today, I wanted to touch on a couple things. One, Russ made a mention of my detailed preparation for the show, because I'm hosting today as Ak and his daughter head up to Broadway to see that wonderful show, Hamilton.
I think it's cool. I wouldn't see it, but I think it's cool.
Whatever. It's fine.
At least you're learning something. What the hell does anybody ever learn from My Fair Lady? I mean, at least you're learning something with that.
My Fair Lady, which Pretty Woman ripped off completely, because that's basically
totally 100%.
What were you gonna say, Jillian?
That I would see it, but then again, I like musicals.
Right, that's the thing. It's not my cup of tea, even though it's history. I actually, if it's a historical play, I just want to see them talk, not sing.
But here's the thing about musicals, Jillian. People don't walk down the street clicking their heels and singing and smiling every moment.
I want to go to a musical, because I have enough real life every day. I could use a break every now and then. In my mind, it is nice to have everyone spontaneously break into song and dance.
Maybe in the 50s they were walking down the streets of Manhattan singing, "If I'm going to be a jet, I'll be a jet for," they're doing West Side Story.
Yeah.
It's just nobody does that. Nobody does that anymore.
Since when are we concerned with reality?
Yeah, exactly. I want to be steeped in reality. What the hell? But we're talking about being prepared for the show, and when I'm hosting the show, I put together a list of talking points to discuss. And I remember listening to Larry King, and Larry King's still around, still doing interviews every once in a while. I think he's doing it for a website now. He used to be on CNN, and back in the 70s and the 80s, he used to do a nationwide show on the Premier. I think it was the Premier Network or the Mutual Network. It was a late night talk show. I think it was like 11 to 4 a.m. And I was a night person, so I would always hear him on the radio. And he always did really good interviews. And I heard later on he never read the book if he interviewed an author. He never prepared for the show. He would go in just completely unprepared, asking inquisitive questions, and that's how he would get.
That's rough.
Yeah, that's rough. I feel like that could backfire very easily.
Yeah. I got to tell you, I mean, I know Jon Stewart did the same thing and said, I'm sorry I didn't see your movie, or sorry I didn't read your book. He would tell people that, but like just the show that I do, XM, the Prospect Show, if I counted the man hours I put into that show a year, just on preparation, going around, seeing guys, whatever, the number would be astronomical. So, like, I don't have a staff working for me. Maybe when you have a staff working for you, they could just print that out for you, and it's nice, and you could do that. Maybe that's the answer.
That's the difference. Yeah, he has a staff that's writing the scripts for him, and he doesn't have to worry about whether what he says is wrong or right, because they have fact checkers, whereas we are all our own fact checkers, and the internet reminds us if we're wrong. So
yeah, but I know that Russ had mentioned a prominent New York radio host who apparently does the same thing.
Look, it's Mike Francesa. I go on a show here in Philly, CBS 3, and there's a producer, Kevin Kincaid. He's on Twitter, and he posted basically a script of a live read for the New York soccer team. What is it? The New York FC.
Yeah, there's the Red Bulls, and there's the one that plays at Yankee Stadium.
Yeah, but it's the one that's at Yankee Stadium, and he didn't even know they play at Yankee Stadium. Hey, Ak.
Hi, Ak.
He had no idea.
How you doing?
Where are you? Speaking of New York City.
Fridays right now. I'll get ready to go to the show. Say hi.
Nice.
She made
Enjoy the show.
I just wanted to say hi. Thanks for doing the show today. Enjoy.
No problem.
Don't rip Mike Mulberry too much. don't do anything I wouldn't do.
Yeah, don't worry. We'll talk about him.
Yeah, tell your daughter to prepare to be disappointed.
No.
Excellent. Excellent. We'll have a great show, and I'll be back tomorrow. And remember,
All right, that's good, and have a happy birthday.
See, I know why Eck did this, because Eck wants to maintain that he's the second guy, making the second most appearances on the Hockey Buzzcast, because now this is considered an appearance.
I know. I did. I couldn't let you get past me too far. You're already pretty far ahead.
I'm already ahead by like 6 lengths. So.
Yeah, you are. So,
all right.
Enjoy the show and tell your daughter happy birthday.
Thank you. Did I say happy birthday to you?
She's probably like, get this damn thing off me.
Dad, please stop. Please stop. Thank you.
She's like, I'm trying to eat lunch here.
I know. I ceased being a cool dad a second ago. All right, see you later.
See ya.
Bye, guys.
And that was X Forehead from Broadway. Okay, before we start.
So me not even preparing, knowing that there was a New York FC team, you knowing that it plays at Yankee Stadium, that's more than Mike Francesa knew, and he was trying to do a live read. It's really funny, and people should go to my Facebook page or Kevin Kincaid's Twitter and read it. It's funny.
Yeah, I see. It was funny because Bill Simmons co-hosted his show on Monday. It was actually a pretty good show, and I've listened to Mike Francesa especially back to the day when Chris Russo was Mike and the Mad Dog, and his contract is up at the end of next year. You can to me, and I don't think this is an insult to him, I think he's been mailing it in the last couple of years. Just the quality of the show really has gone down. And I don't know about the ratings, but I used to watch him on Yes or on Fox Sports 1. Now he's not on TV anymore, and I very rarely watch or listen to the show. So it's sort of sad, but maybe it's just a commentary on how there's so many things out there, so many different.
And I think that's what it is. I mean, look, the guy's very successful, maybe the most successful of all time, and you do it for that many years, and so that's what happens. But you're right. Nowadays, there are so many options. That's really when he started, there weren't that many options. Now there's a bazillion.
I also think there's a difference nowadays too, where you have a switch in the media where you have to earn people's respect and earn people's trust. And people no longer just trust you because you're on TV or because you're on the radio. You have had to earn people's trust. You have had to show that you know your stuff for long enough, and that's where it comes in. And that's why, like you said, you like to go into it prepared. You do a lot of prep because that's important, because that's how people learn to trust you, is because you know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and also I think. I mean, Francesa and Russo were at the cutting edge, because remember the two-man crew was not. It was mostly most of the time it was just one guy.
Yeah.
Sports talker being a DJ.
There was Art Russ Jr. in New York. He was like the first one I remember. Right.
So, but they sort of perfected that model of having more than one voice in the studio. The dynamic was great. And now, if you listen, I mean, Bob McCowan in Toronto, who's done primetime sports for over 30 years, I believe. He's always had, the panel conversation on Fridays, and it was always the best show because it was a number of viewpoints. There's a TSN show in Toronto with Brian Hayes and Jeff O'Neill and Jamie McLennan, which is an excellent show, and they getting all the different opinions and all of. I think that is the future of radio and of podcasts and webcasts, is just not one face, one voice, but numerous voices. Jillian, you had sent us a link for something.
Well, actually, before the link, I just want to give one quick shout out. Sure. This is a message for Ryan Fitzpatrick. This is why I'm wearing this hat. When you're dealing with the NFL now, there's so much money in the NFL that I don't think players have that connection with fans that they used to. And so now I think they see, hey, everybody's making a lot of money, and you want to make the most money you could possibly make under any circumstances. Last year, Ryan Fitzpatrick had a really nice year for the Jets. It took Jet fans 4 or 5 games to warm up to him, but he started to play well and win, and maybe play the best football of his life, or since his Buffalo days, and maybe 1 year in Houston. He's had a very up-and-down career, and he got them close to the playoffs when nobody was expecting it. But at the end of the day, last game of the season in Buffalo, he tanked it and had a bad game and they lost and they didn't make the playoffs. Even after that, the Jets offered him close to $8 million, and he's been holding out ever since. He has no other job opportunities. Every job in the NFL is pretty much taken, and yet he refuses to accept the salary the Jets have offered. So he'd rather hold out, and so now even players like that are friends with him are like, hey, we've got to move on. And my message to him is, you're greedy. Stop being greedy, because at the end of the day, you had a whole fan base behind you. You had the two best receivers in football. The Jets receivers are voted the best tandem in football, and you don't want to play and get behind the center for them? Makes no sense. Unfortunately, the Sam Bradford contract ruined the whole negotiation with Fitzpatrick. But at the end of the day, is it really worth it to sit out part of a season waiting for somebody to get hurt? That's my question, and the Jet fans should be mad, and they have a right to be mad.
Well, Russ, come on. Of course he's greedy. He's from Harvard. All those Harvard guys are greedy.
Look, I mean, this is how bad it is for the Jets. 1998 champions. I mean, and it's not Super Bowl champions. So, you know, there's not that much you can hang your hat on as a Jet fan, and so this season, it's basically hinging on a guy holding out, and that's pretty bad.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, we're back. We're back
on the street. Man on the street.
Are we in time?
Hey guys, I have to hijack for a second here. Okay?
Yeah.
Because I am. You got me, guys?
Yes. Here you go.
Your forehead.
Okay, yeah. So just had to do a little bit of a HockeyBuzzcast from Times Square. Come on now.
Oh.
There we go.
That was an interesting billboard.
Hey, McDonald's, let's go for lunch.
Yeah. Anybody hungry? I feel like you went out to Times Square very quickly where you just were. Is he still there? Did we lose him?
We're losing him.
Yeah.
Hamilton's right over. And yeah, so I just wanted to say hi. And I thought Times Square, you have to do something over here. So that's the HockeyBuzzcast live from Times Square. Talk to you, and actually the NHL store is like 2 blocks from here too.
Go buy a Leafs Austin Matthews jersey.
That's that. Guys, have fun. Sorry to bother you. I won't bother you guys again.
No.
Not bothering us.
No.
Cool.
Okay.
I guess he didn't pay for like a Power Ranger or a hug him. But go ahead, Julian. I didn't want to.
Julian, yeah. Tell us the story that he would message us about.
Yeah, I'd sent a text this morning to you guys in the group. We have a nice little group text, and it came up in my Facebook news feed. I'm originally from the Philadelphia area, and it came up because we have some people from Lower Delaware, and it was a kid, a 10-year-old kid. He plays for like a little league baseball team, and he was going to get a foul ball and was hit by a drunk driver. He is currently in the hospital, and I think they said serious but critical, or critical but serious condition.
I think it was critical but serious, yeah.
Okay, and to add on to this, he lost his father back in November, so the family is going through a really rough time. And it was the story that I was reading on Facebook was there was a lot of minor league players in the community coming around and just showing support for the kid. His name is Garrett, number 22, and just like sending pictures with the number 22, or like we support Garrett, or even writing it within the diamond there. And it was just really nice to see. They had even last year's, I guess, NCAA champs even sent something in for baseball. But if anybody's out there and hears it and is interested in sending it, it's Henlope and Wave Baseball in Lower Delaware. They would really appreciate it. It's really great to see that community coming together. And when you get in front of something that's becoming viral, it almost feels that way. And just getting the word out there just to send that support. I know it doesn't seem like a lot, but it always helps.
Hey, we're sending positive vibes, but I have to say I can't get behind the number 22 because Kevin McReynolds wore it once for the Mets. And
wow.
And he stained it. But I do support you, and I hope you get well soon.
But it's always fun for me to see a sports community in general coming together. You even see it cross over too, not just within one community. So it's one of the really great things that sports can do. I know we like to talk about things that happen on the ice, or the players, or even some analysts, but there's a lot of good things that can come from it.
Okay, here, I'm going to ring the bell, even though I don't have access to X bell.
Good bell. Very good bell.
There you go. Okay.
Top quality here.
There you go. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Wednesday, May 18th, 2016.
I'm Jillian Fisher.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology with the only working lower third, the only one.
I'm really impressed. And I'm Michael Agello, and this is the Hockey Buzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. As you could tell, Ack is in Times Square making his way towards Broadway. He'll be back tomorrow, we think. So we'll forge ahead and discuss Game 2 of the Western Conference Final last night as the San Jose Sharks beat St. Louis Blues 4-0, tie up the series as it heads back to San Jose. Russ, I look at the series and I thought San Jose was the better of the two teams in Game 1, but they, obviously allowed 2 goals and could not beat Brian Elliott, or did not get a good enough scoring chance to beat Brian Elliott in the third period of Game 1. This time around, they generated offense. They beat Brian Elliott. I didn't think Elliott was particularly great. He wasn't at fault for the loss. But this is 2 games in a row where San Jose has been the better team.
Yeah, I think the one that went under the chicken wing for Elliott wasn't a great goal. I think the Sharks really had dominated most of the series. I mean, with the exception of like the first period and a half of Game 1, it's been all Sharks. And if I'm Ken Hitchcock, I'm worried about that now, because we talked about it before that game. We said, hey, we all felt like the Sharks had momentum, and as that game went on, the momentum got better and better for them and worse for St. Louis. I saw bad plays out of Jay Bouwmeester. Like, I don't know if he's running out of gas, but I saw some really bad play. I'm not seeing enough out of David Backes in the crease. I'm not seeing hardly any push from their blue line, and I think that's what's killing them. I think, and Peter Angelo, even though we said he had a great last series, him and Shattenkirk, what really seems, at least in my mind, to make that team work is they get that push from the blue line, and then they set it up in the offensive zone, get in the crease, and get good shots. They can't set it up. They can't get out of their own end. And so that's a big problem. The Sharks have played a great game. I mean, they really have. Peter DeBoer is a good coach. He always was a good coach. If you think about the Devils team that he brought to the Stanley Cup, other than Kovalchuk and a couple of players, they didn't have a lot of players.
Right.
But when his system's working, it works. And it's working right now. And guys are playing it to perfection. And the goaltending, look, Martin Jones, and I think he's a little better than Elliott. But at the end of the day, Elliott's not killing them, but he's not giving them confidence either. And that's the thing that started to erode away in that game, was the confidence in front of Elliott. So I don't know if they're considering a change, but at some point you might see a change, but it might not be next game.
Also, it's a little frustrating too. Elliott played a good game in Game 1, so it's a shame they didn't come out playing better. And I guess my thing is, Russ has said it too, they're playing DeBoer's system to a T. It's to perfection, and I don't know. I'm not the coach, but how do you combat that? What do you? I'm looking for your guys' opinion. What do you think that the Blues need to do to combat that system? To combat the way that they're playing, they're moving the puck so well. It's impressive to watch.
Well, one of the things that I said at the beginning of this series that it made me choose San Jose was the fact that St. Louis has gone through 2 7-game series. Mm-hmm. And I know that San Jose went to Game 7 against Nashville, but they only played 5 games against LA. And then, I know they're tough games, but they got a little bit of a breather in between the first series and the second series. In this instance, St. Louis, they went to Game 7 against Chicago. That was an extremely tough series. Dallas, they couldn't put Dallas away. That went to 7 games. So maybe a bit of fatigue is showing up here. I've heard indications that San Jose is the dramatically quicker team, and I really haven't seen evidence of that. But I don't
know if they're dramatically quicker. Yeah, I'm buying that. They're quicker, but I don't know if it's that big of a difference.
Yeah, I didn't notice it, but I've heard other people say that they're the better skating team. Where I think that, at least in this game, I mean, and I made a little bit of a joke of it, but, Vlad Tarasenko, I hardly noticed him. I didn't see him at all, and I understand, and not to put everything on the fact that he just became a father, but he in the second half of the series against Dallas, his play dramatically declined. At least he didn't step up and wasn't the force that he was in the Chicago. I mean, in the Chicago series, he was the go-to guy. They could not stop him. Against Dallas, and Dallas is not a good defensive team. he drifted off, and now I've hardly noticed him in the first 2 games of this series.
I noticed him for the wrong reasons in the third period. He didn't have a good third period at all. He actually lost some pucks, and again, they lost a lot of pucks. They couldn't even get the puck in. But my biggest thing is get the puck in deep. Get it in really deep, hold it in the corners, get Fabry buzzing through the crease, get Backus in the crease, let you guys take shots, but have somebody in front of Jones. They made it way too easy for Martin Jones to make saves. He didn't have a lot of contested saves. San Jose definitely has more traffic in front of the St. Louis net than vice versa, and I think that, to me, is the biggest thing. Now, St. Louis can get that back, but I think the problem here is that now they're leaving St. Louis. They're going to San Jose. San Jose was already a good road team. We knew that. Now they're going home, and they actually do have momentum. It's very rare when I could even say a team has momentum in these playoffs, but for the moment, they do have it.
But San Jose,
because they played better in game 1 too. If it's not often that you see a team play better and lose, and they did, and that's what happened. And I don't want to. You don't want to blame Elliott for last night because it was mediocre across the board.
Yep.
But he didn't come up with the big saves, and that was really the difference to me, is that he didn't come up with those couple of big saves that he did in game 1. And so if that's what you're relying on, that's going to be a problem. And also, everyone wanted to talk about how San Jose has this great checking team. They can check and get teams off their game, and I'm not seeing that either in this series.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that San Jose has to be concerned about, it hasn't been completely impossible for teams in this playoff to win in San Jose. LA won their only game in the series in San Jose. Nashville won, I think it was either game 1 or game 2 in San Jose. So if St. Louis goes in there and they've had an ability to win on the road, obviously getting to the third round of the playoffs, they've had to have been able to do that. You know, they can pull out a win in one of the 2 games, and then they have the home ice advantage back. But I mean, right now, I think the thing that Hitchcock has to be most concerned with is the fact that in those 2 games at home, his team was the worst of the 2 teams on both occasions.
Well,
So,
I think the bottom lines for San Jose are killing St. Louis's bottom lines. Like, Steve Ott has been pretty much useless,
yeah.
and he's better than that. Like, there's a reason you have Steve Ott on your team. If you're going to let him play in the playoffs and he's not going to be in the penalty box, he's got to do something. Like, Tommy Wingles is killing anybody who's playing against him on St. Louis. Like, there are certain guys for San Jose that are just killing their assignments, and that's hurting St. Louis. Matchups are hurting them.
Well, it's surprising that Ott even got back for the playoffs. The injury that he had during the season, so that people thought, not that it was going to be career-threatening, but it was going to be season-threatening. And the fact that he got back for the playoffs, I guess, is a testament to his work ethic and getting, healing process. But he isn't the same player. I don't think he's as quick as he was before. You know, he's still a pain in the ass to play against.
Sure.
But it's just, I mean, you can only take that so far, and sometimes that's a negative because you take penalties. And that can be detrimental to your team. Now, the one thing I saw last night is St. Louis, down 2-0 in the third period, had a double minor from Marlowe high sticking. I think it was Carl Gunnarsson, and they didn't generate one good scoring chance on a 4-minute power play. I looked up and saw half that power play gone, and I don't even remember them setting up in the offensive zone. St. Louis needs to get some offensive chances on their power play. If they don't do that, they're not winning the series.
They even had a 5-on-3 for it 40 seconds?
45 seconds or something like that. Yeah.
You can't not have that many power plays and do not. It was 5, I think, total they had. They were 0 for 5.
Yeah.
0 for 5. And when you're losing 2-0, you have to jump on that.
Yeah, I agree with that. I do give Brett Burns credit. He reeled it in. He had a nice goal. That was a big game for him. I thought Roman Polak had a nice game.
Yeah.
But conversely, I mean, I don't want this to be Leafs talk, but Gunnarsson was horrible. He was.
And ironically, those two were traded for each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, at the draft that we were both at, Russ, back a couple of years ago. But yeah, and you know, honestly, Roman Polak Roman Polak is a former Blue. I'm sure he probably didn't like getting traded. There was talk throughout most of the time that he was with Toronto that the Blues wanted to get him back because they were missing that tough presence, a right-hand shot on the blue line. They never came to fruition, and I don't think many teams would have been willing to pay the 2 second-round picks that San Jose did to get him. But in the end, that trade doesn't look. I mean, I wouldn't give up 2 second-round picks for Roman Polak, but right now, if San Jose has a chance to go to the Stanley Cup final, if he's the missing piece, that's the price that you pay. And Nick Spaulding, has been a pretty decent extra forward for them. So that was a deal that helped, that Doug Wilson did, that helped San Jose, advance further. And we'll see how that helps if they get by St. Louis and get to the Stanley Cup final. Want to shift to the World Championships here. Now, you go through I think it's a 4-game round robin, just to get seeding for the quarterfinals. Some teams get eliminated. The Slovaks got eliminated. The Hungarians got eliminated. But you do this basically just to get to the quarterfinals. And right now, you have the quarterfinals. I believe start tomorrow. It's the Czechs versus the U.S., Sweden versus Canada, Denmark versus Finland, who went undefeated 4-0. And Russia and Germany. Now, Russ, I know you watched the Canada-Finland game on delay today. I watched some of it yesterday, and the big hubbub was Corey Perry sort of mini slew-footing Patrick Laine, which just sent every draft geek in the world aflutter. Did you catch that, and what did you think of that?
I did, and and it was very similar to, remember the hit a few weeks ago where I said he's going to the bench and he's just trying to send a message. Whatever hit that was, I can't remember, the knee-to-knee shot that everybody's thought was so egregious. Now,
was it Wilson?
Yeah, it was Tom Wilson. Now, this was the same sort of thing, except he used his leg and he tried to sort of give him a mini slew foot and was going to the bench and tried not to get caught on camera. But the IHF is very good with all kinds of ticky-tack penalties, and so they catch that stuff right away. They're looking for that, and Perry should just be ashamed of himself. Like, he's a rat. He's a great, talented player, but he's a rat. And when you do stuff like that to a young player, he knows he's going to end up in the West. And so Perry's basically trying to send a message now. Marchand, same thing. Marchand tried to, give him a face wash. Marchand ripped off another guy's helmet. It's like, look, guys, I get that this is what you do in the NHL, but this is a hockey tournament. This is not what you do in this tournament. Play. Marchand's got more talent than that, too. It's like, stop with that game. But you know what that game told me, Mike? Canada didn't care about that game. They were already in. They knew. Finland cared way more than Canada did. Canada was just skating around.
And, Russ, what do those two players have in common? And I'm pretty sure about this. I think Marchand and Perry are both on the outside looking in right now for the World Cup of Hockey for Canada. They weren't chosen among the original group. And this kind of chicanery, I'm sure, plays very well with the management group of Team Canada. Okay, we want to get Brad Marchand, we want to get Corey Perry because they'll give us sandpaper and they can score.
Maybe, but maybe not. Maybe they don't want that for that kind of tournament. We'll see. I mean, we don't know what the new tournament's going to be like. They may want more finesse in that tournament. We don't know. It's in a North American arena, so chances are no. But I mean, at some point, like, Marchand's sitting in the box for a really dumb penalty for that. Perry should have been sitting in the box, but they just sort of let it go, right? They didn't give him a penalty on that, I don't think.
I mean, I think that in St. Petersburg they were tempted to call the Orkin man with Brendan Gallagher and Marchand on the ice at the same time, and now Perry. It's like an infestation, for Christ's sake.
Yeah, and Gallagher was trying. They're all trying to sort of picket Laine, but I have to tell you, the fake narrative of Laine possibly going first,
yes,
and the talk of the discussion points during the game, and then when they go to studio, to me it's very disingenuous. It's like, listen, I get that you have the broadcast rights here and you want to keep it exciting for people. That's great. I think hockey fans are smart enough to see Patrick Laine is a really good player, yes, and I think you could see by what he does, he's fun to watch. But don't start this fake narrative like he's going to be the #1 pick, or like the Leafs are going to have any more interest in him if he's an airhead or not. Just stop all that, please.
Well, that's the funny thing, and Jillian, I love the sort of subconscious or subliminal messaging that goes on with broadcast and with like the websites. It's like TSN posted a picture of Corey Perry with tangling with Laine, and the caption read, "Potential #1 pick Patrick Laine tangles with Corey Perry."
That's an interesting way to word that, because that's not what happened.
That's like saying I'm potentially going to go out on a date with Jessica Chastain. I'd say, yes, I'm a human. I'm alive. She's alive. Maybe
it's not impossible.
By some miracle, I bump into her at the Toronto Film Festival in September, and our eyes will meet, and there you go. But no.
I think this is a problem with, I don't know if it's just hockey, but hockey might have one of the bigger problems, is trying to create these stories, trying to make up narratives, and you're talking to an audience who, this isn't football, this isn't the major sport in America, right? So the people who are tuning in kind of know what they're looking for, what they're watching, what's right and what's wrong. Stop making things up, because they see right through it, and it's kind of frustrating. It's annoying. We're tired of hearing about it. Provide something insightful. Give me something new that I don't already know, or that I am not going to get angry at you for saying. Yeah. That would be nice.
There's always a team that could trade up and take them first. That exists in every draft, but it rarely ever happens. And so at the end of the day, I don't expect it to happen.
No.
There have been good debates over the years and bad debates. The Taylor-Tyler debate was a good debate. I happen to fall on the right side of that one. But I got to tell you, it's still close. Like, it's, they're neck and neck. So that was a good debate.
Russ, I went through and took the rumored debates from the last 8 drafts.
Okay.
Going back to Patrick Kane and JVR in 2000s.
And remember, there was a whole group of Chicago fans that didn't want any part of Patrick Kane because the game was big and he was too small. That's true. I have it on broadcast. Yeah.
Get out! Oh man.
The only one over the last 8 years, or now I guess 9 years, was Stamkos in 2008. He was the presumptive number 1. There was never any question of anybody else being drafted first. Not Doughty, not anybody.
They were called Doughty fat, which I laughed at. I mean, that was the narrative.
Yeah, it was all Stamkos. But okay, and here's the point. You go through most of these, and I'll go through them quickly. You go through most of these, and everybody who was the presumptive number 1, at some point, there was somebody who, oh my God, this guy is now tied with the other guy. So here we go. John Tavares and Victor Hedman. I remember after the lottery, a lot of people were saying the Islanders are going to take Victor Hedman. They're worried about John Tavares' speed. You only get this opportunity to draft a big, 6'7" type of, he was the Swedish Chris Pronger, all this stuff, and in the end, the Islanders took Tavares.
It was never going to happen. It was always Tavares. It
was never going to happen. It was complete BS. Tyler Taylor, I think they were both. It was a question of whether, who Edmonton liked better.
It was legit. It was legit.
Right. I mean, I think Sagan could have very easily have been picked first, and that would have been a good pick. And Hall was, and I think he's he's a top 10 scorer. I mean, that's why I don't understand some of the, the talk about him being traded by Edmonton, because of most of their top guys, he's the one I would least consider a failure.
Right.
In 2011, you had Nugent Hopkins, and I remember there was talk about Gabriel Landeskog, but in the end, Edmonton took Hopkins. Now, I mean, Russ, I don't remember the talk of them taking Landeskog being.
No, but I will tell you this: that year I got it wrong because I thought Larson had a chance of going first because there was tremendous talk about Larson. So there was a little bit more of a narrative that year with those 3, and so there wasn't 100% with RNH. But in the end, RNH was the guy you were saying that was talked about, and he was the guy that ended up being 1. So that's fair to say.
And the narrative there was affected by Edmonton's crying need for defensemen, which, of course, in 2012, and as we know, the ownership of the Edmonton Oilers stuck their nose in it and decided to say, we're going to take Nail Yakupov instead of taking Ryan Murray. I mean, in that point, I thought they were basically even. They weren't perfect, either one of them, but Murray would have made more sense for Edmonton instead of Yakupov.
I was on the Yakupov side, but I got what people were saying about Murray. I didn't think Murray was ever really going to go number 1, though. I didn't. And it obviously got a little closer than I thought. But the thing is, at the end of the day, we just looked it up earlier. I mean, Murray's played 160 games. Now, maybe Yakupov hasn't played to everybody's expectations, but he's played a lot more games.
Yeah.
So far, right now, they still made the right pick because Murray has yet to really show himself to what everybody thought he would be. He's a good defenseman, but he hasn't shown himself as a great defenseman.
And then 2013, everybody thought Seth Jones was going to be the first pick. At least that was the conventional wisdom.
Everybody but me, and I got killed for it. Killed to the point where this is the year I stopped reading comments, but the last comment I read on CSN Philly, a guy goes, "I will give you the keys to my house if Nathan MacKinnon goes first." And I really was thinking about it. The minute Joe Sakic said, "Oh yeah, we have immense interest in Nathan MacKinnon," it was game over. Everybody knew at that point it was MacKinnon going one, and I really wanted to go on the message board and tell that guy, "I will come pick up the keys to your house." But
why didn't you, actually, is my question.
Because I'm not like that.
No, see, I think some people need to be told, need to be reminded that you can't just spew hate on the internet without some type of repercussion. Sometimes people need to be reminded and get put in their place.
Now, okay, in 2014, this was a campaign of BS. Leading up the 2 days before the draft, when I was in Philadelphia and we were hearing all this stuff about Florida, about Dale Talon trading the #1 pick because they didn't think that Aaron Ekblad was going to be the number, or was worthy enough of being the #1. Like, okay, but who's going to be the number? Are you going to take Sam Reinhart? Are you going to trade the pick? I mean, there was talk about Toronto trading up from 8 to 1. It was total BS. In the end, they took Ekblad.
It was completely laughable. Like, laughable to the point where I remember I even wrote an article and said, this is what Florida did in the past, and this is why they weren't successful, because they made trades like that, and they didn't do it, and because Dale Talon would never do something like that, and obviously it was the right move.
Right, and then finally, and I'm sure people want to forget about this, but around the time of the World Junior last year, around December, there was talk, oh my God, Jack Eichel is doing so great at Boston University, and Connor McDavid got hurt with Erie. Maybe Eichel's the #1 pick.
Right.
Give me a break. That's what I'm saying here.
And we're not disparaging the other players. It's just, there's some times when you can tell it's going to be the guy. And, again, I told you one year ISS put Valery Nichushkin is #1. And we got into a big Twitter fight about it because I basically told them, why are you even doing this? Yeah. You're just doing this to start a narrative, and they got mad at me. And actually, they didn't used to follow me, but they followed me just so they could yell at me. And and that was fine. But I wanted to basically, this is when these things started to get to me a little bit. Now I just laugh them off. But I was like, listen, you can't put Nichushkin #1. Just stop.
It's getting bad, Russ, when you get followers just so they can direct message you and tell you to screw yourself.
Yeah.
Always good.
But that's what is going on here. I am not defaming or slamming or diminishing the value of Patrick Laine. I think Patrick Laine is going to be a very good NHL player. But you're talking about the Maple Leafs, who have been looking for a #1 center since Matt Sundin screwed them 8 years ago and decided not to waive his no-trade clause and then signed with Vancouver the year after. They've never had a #1 center since. And Austin Matthews, there's nobody out there saying that Austin Matthews isn't capable of being a franchise center, that he isn't a good two-way. I mean, the only criticism of him I've heard is that he may not be a 100-point guy, that he may be like an 80-point.
Oh my God, who is a 100-point guy in this era?
Yeah, Patrick Kane. That's the only guy who's an 80-point, 100-point guy. Exactly.
That's really the criticism, though. That's the criticism they got.
Yeah, exactly. So all I'm saying is that Patrick Laine is going to be a very good NHL player, but the Maple Leafs are not going to pick him over Austin Matthews. It's just not going to happen. So I understand why outlets are doing this. They're tantalizing the fan base. They have something to talk about for the next 4 or 5 weeks until the draft in Buffalo. But I'm telling you, there's no suspense here. I don't have any inside information, but I would be genuinely shocked if the Maple Leafs take Patrick Laine at #1.
Here's the last thing I'll say. Go ahead, Jillian.
No, go ahead, Russ. That's fine.
I was just going to say, I just looked up Matthews. He's got 6 points in a meaningless tournament in 7 games. Every tournament he shows up, and he's either a point a game or over a point a game, and he's playing with He doesn't have Barkov on his line. He doesn't. I mean, do we really even need to go any further? Come on.
And he's playing for a subpar U.S. team, and he's 18 years old, and he's got a point per game, and he's being criticized because Line A has 10 points.
Right.
So, go ahead, Jillian. What were you going to say?
I was just going to say that along this line is like making up these stories, making up a narrative. Is there really nothing else interesting that we can find? Is it really that hard? I mean, I happen to find there's lots of great stories out there, lots of great talking points. You can find something if you just spend a little bit more time. I know people are out there to get the hits and get the views, but it's more work, and it's. I don't want to say it's lazy, because it's not, because I understand that they're trying to make a living.
It's easy. It's on a silver platter sitting right there.
I call it the low-lying fruit. That's the low-lying fruit. Now, you're talking about something with a little bit of work, but I like those stories better. If people go to my site, Sportsology, I'll plug it, but if you go there, you'll see features leading right up to the draft, and I interview these kids, tell the story. But the thing is, to me, that's what I think people want. They want to know more about the players. They don't need to hear more about this fake drama.
Yeah, right. And also it's something, I like, you can go anywhere and get this fake drama. Give me something different. Give me something unique. Give me a new point of view.
Well, speaking of real drama.
Actually, you know what? When we're talking about internet drama, we got to give Matt Murray credit, because I don't know who these people were. I didn't notice it. For these people to say that the puck the other day went through his glove.
Oh, yeah, that was ridiculous.
And there was this whole Twitter uproar. Good for Matt Murray to come out and say, what the hell are you talking about? That never happened. Answering those people was good, because at the end of the day, we see that there are a lot of, I'm going to say it, there are a lot of amateurs on Twitter that try and talk about hockey, and whoever was trying to say that that puck went through his glove is an amateur, and I'm glad Murray called him out.
Probably happened. Somebody probably made a joke. This is what, honestly, I would imagine. This is in my head. I could see this happening. Somebody made a joke about the puck going through his glove. Somebody was ignorant enough to see that and not realize it was sarcastic, or not go and actually look at the facts, and then made a comment about it, and then somebody else saw it, and then the chain of ignorance continued on, and then it became a thing. That's probably what happened, and good for Matt Murray for shutting it down. Again, I am a fan of, sometimes you need to just remind everybody of the truth. I think the truth is a very important thing that we don't get a lot of, and it's good sometimes to put it out there.
It is.
Yeah, I think the original tweet was from somebody named Fox Mulder, but okay. Well, conspiracy theories. Where's the X-Files music?
Maybe there was a GIF, and maybe the GIF didn't look right. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Whatever.
But speaking of commentary, NBC Sports Network's Mike Milbury yesterday.
I have the quote. You want me to say?
I have it too. I have it too.
You go ahead, Mike.
This is what Milbury said, and I believe it was after the second period, during the intermission with Keith Jones and Liam McHugh on NBC.
With JR. It was JR.
Oh, JR. Oh, geez.
Yeah.
There you go. So it was a bit of one-upsmanship, because we know JR doesn't make any controversial statements.
It's bad when there was a gif of JR like putting his head down and like rolling his eyes like, oh, I don't. And this was something that happened in the first intermission, so.
Okay. This is Milbury. If you're going to slash a guy, break a bone or something. If you're going to hit somebody from behind, give him a slight concussion or something. Now, okay, I'm not going to slam or slag Don Cherry, because I like Don Cherry. I've watched him since I was a kid. And even if he said something close to this, it would be excusable because he's an old-time hockey guy, and that's maybe the vernacular that he would use. And I think you can put Milbury in that same category, because he played during the 70s and the early 80s, and back then the game was rough and tumble. But you've got to realize. Go ahead, Russ.
In 1980-81, 222 penalty minutes. In 1982-83, 216 penalty minutes. That's great, but you had 49 career goals. And at the end of the day, it's not 1979 anymore. We don't need to break people's bones just for the heck of it. We don't need to give people concussions just for the heck of it when we know what a concussion can do. And to say it on national television is totally irresponsible, and it just shows that he loves his old pre-internet world that, only a few of us were watching back then. No offense, Jillian. And younger people out there. But I mean,
only a few of us were alive back then, Russ.
But he was He was a goon. That's what he was. He was a goon.
And here's my thing. Probably my biggest problem with this, because the fact of how just ignorant and wrong this comment is, like that's just like common sense, right? You can't say this. That's just so wrong. Is the hypocrisy. Because he is the first one to call people dirty, the first one to say they need to know better than to do that. He's the first one to lay into players. He laid into Orpik on his hit. He called him, I think he called him a dirty player.
Predator.
Predator. And then when Letang has the same kind of hit, he talks about how Letang's the stand-up guy. And then you go and say you should give somebody a slight concussion. Give me a freaking break. And stop being a hypocrite, because you know what? That's why I get angry, is because you are playing sides. You are, I know, Russ, I said that this is the voice to the NHL, and you're like, it's kind of NBC, but you know what? To the viewers, this is the NHL. This is the only coverage you can see in America. So this is the voice of the NHL, and that I am embarrassed that is what the voice of the NHL is saying, and what a hypocrite that is coming across as, especially if you're watching this and you're like, I don't understand what this guy is saying. He was just calling somebody else a predator, calling somebody else a stand-up guy, and then saying give somebody a slight concussion. It is frustrating.
It's funny because I wonder if the NHL really wants their spokesman on their NHL broadcast in the United States to be arguably the worst general manager in the history of the league. And, I know that, like, in football, Matt Millen was a guy who was a commentator. He went to be a general manager. He was a complete disaster in Detroit, and then he went right back to being a commentator, and a pretty decent one. But Milbury's of a previous generation, and the things that he advocates, I watched hockey in the 70s and the 80s, and I know it was a rough-and-tumble game, and fights and bench-clearing brawls and hits from behind and high sticks and all that stuff were more prevalent then, and he is, I think, stuck in a time warp going back to that era. That's not what the NHL is now, unfortunately. And with the concussion lawsuit out there and with everything else, I don't think the league is going to want one of their main spokesmen propagating the fact that he wants players to go out and give slight concussions. It's irresponsible.
Remember, back then, Mario Lemieux retired because it was a clutch and grab league and he couldn't take it anymore.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be encouraging any type of predatory hit like that. I'm going to use his own words. You shouldn't be encouraging that. I get what I think what he was really trying to say is don't be stupid and take a dumb penalty. If you're going play with a purpose.
You're going to make it meaningful somehow. But he went way off.
Yeah, I think he put his foot in his mouth and he'll never apologize for it. No. If you're gonna make a hit hurt somebody, that's not what it was. It was more of like don't be lazy. That's how I read it. That's how if I was thinking about what he really might have.
Oh, no, you know what? I'm going to switch. I think what he really was saying is, if you're going to take a penalty like that, then make him pay for it.
Make him count.
And I don't want to believe that, even though I know it's probably true. I don't want to believe it.
I think it's down that road, and especially if you think about the way we've talked in the first couple rounds about how the NHL and about the playoffs are more of a war of attrition. You go down the road of, okay, if you're going to hit Sidney Crosby, make him hurt, because then he'll be less effective. If you're going to slap him, don't tap him on the elbow, hit him on the wrist so his wrist is sore so he can't shoot a wrist shot anymore. That's what it is. It's a war of attrition. That may talking about it that way may go against the code, but I think that the stakes are so high and these teams want to win the Stanley Cup that's the approach that they're taking. Go after the star players, make them hurt.
And that's not, to me, that's not hockey. That's not how the sport should be played. I think if you're playing and you happen to hit somebody and that happens, it does, and your purpose isn't to hurt them, but it happens, I think that's part of the game. I think we all know that is part. This is a game. It's fast, it's very physical, and injuries are going to happen. But to go out there and say you should, if you're going to take a penalty, make sure you make it worthwhile. That should never be a team's purpose. That should never. And I get what Mike, you were saying, that it's a war of attrition. If you take out the star player, you never know what could happen. It maybe gives you an advantage. But be the better team in general. Maybe you shouldn't take out their star player.
Fans that want that, because they do.
What was that? I didn't hear you, Russ.
I said, don't think that there aren't some fans out there that don't want that, because there are some that do, because they would rather their team get any advantage they can, and if that's the way they get it, that's the way they get it. And that is old school 1970s thinking. That is the hockey that we used to watch.
But here's why it's dangerous. this speed of the game today, you're going to end up, do you want to see somebody get paralyzed out there? Because you're going to see it. If that's the motivation, you're going to see it. And then you're going to feel really bad because you've now wished that somebody would get paralyzed. Be careful. Be careful what you wish for. We wished that we could review the offsides, and guess what? We got it, and we all hated it. So be careful.
In 1975, most of the players in the leagues didn't in the NHL did not wear helmets.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And the reason that there were not more concussions at that time was because nobody was skating as fast as any of the players skating today. Right. And none of the players were as big as the players who are skating today. So you don't have somebody who could say for example Gilbert Perreault or Guy Lafleur were the top skating forwards in 1975. Mm-hmm. You've got 200 players in the NHL who probably skate as well as Perreault and Lafleur now. So that's the difference, and now you've got elbow pads that are basically projectiles and weapons.
But you're asking Mike Milbury to evolve as a human being. It's not going to happen.
Again, my biggest gripe with that is also the hypocrisy. Don't be a hypocrite about it either. Don't call somebody else a predator. Call somebody else a stand-up guy, and then encourage.
We're talking about it, and he gets ratings.
And I can't imagine that the NHL is happy with that right now. I cannot imagine that they're happy.
But NBC's not unhappy with that.
Yeah. And ironically, Russ, the same guy who climbed to the stands in Madison Square Garden and beat somebody over the head with their own shoe, I believe he came out of college hockey, and I think he was one of the few guys on the Bruins that wore a helmet right out of college. I don't think he was ever one of those guys who went
helmetless. I don't.
Yeah, I don't remember him either. But okay, let's touch on the game tonight. It sounds like it's going to be status quo in goal. Vasilevsky for Tampa, Matt Murray staying in net for Pittsburgh. There's some question. I mean, I don't understand it, especially coming off a win. Apparently, Mike Sullivan went to Marc-Andre Fleury after the first period and told him to be ready in case, and that didn't happen. But
I don't think there's a big problem with that. I think, you know what? I think all Sullivan's trying to do, he's a big sort of believer in keeping his guys in the game. And I think when you're a guy like Marc-Andre Fleury who hasn't played in forever, he's just trying to keep him mentally in the game. I think that's all he's trying to do. I don't think there's really a danger of him taking out Murray. Now, if Murray gives up 3 goals tonight in the first period, he's getting taken out. But I think he's trying to sort of mentally prepare Marc-Andre Fleury that, hey, don't just take in the game here. Start thinking the game because you could come in. I don't have a problem with that.
Well, and you would hope that he's on the bench thinking that, but it's so easy to sit on that bench and your mind, you're like you said, you're watching it, you're not a part of it. So I think that's just a friendly reminder.
Yeah.
Well, okay, and there's the question: what does it take to get Fleury in net? Is it a bad period by Matt Murray? Does he have to? Does he lose game 3 and then they go to Fleury? I mean, I think if they're down by 3 or 4 goals in a game, they're going to put.
Yeah, if you're down 3-0, he could come out
because they would want to get Fleury in there to face some pucks in preparation for maybe playing a future game. I mean, that's the question. If he gives up 3 or 4 goals and they bring in Fleury, is Fleury the start of the following game, or do they go back to Murray again?
Again, it depends on circumstances. You know, it's an unusual circumstance because Fleury is the clear number 1. He lost the number 1, so rightly so, Murray's going tonight. But if Murray gives up 3 or 4 goals in the first period and then somehow Pittsburgh comes back and wins and Fleury doesn't give up a goal, they probably are going with Fleury. But I don't think anybody would have a problem with that either.
But, Mike, I guess you were kind of saying if they're down 3 goals late in the third, do you plop Fleury in there to get him kind of in the game, get him to get some pucks? Is that what you were saying, Mike?
Yeah, I'm wondering, like, say if it's 3-0 with 5 minutes to go, then you probably let Murray stay in there. If it's 3-0 at the end of 2 and you come out for the third, then you're looking for a momentum change, and then also you're looking to get Fleury in there in case you decide you want to go with him in the following game, and he can say, okay, he's seen some action, he's practiced for the last couple weeks, the concussion issues, the cloudiness is gone, and now he's faced some pucks. So then he becomes a viable option. It's just a question of whether Sullivan wants to stick with the guy who's gotten him through 2 rounds, or if he wants to go with the guy who won a Stanley Cup. I mean, he's got those are nice options.
It's good options, but I think it goes deeper than that. I think the minute you go away from Murray, you are risking sort of losing him for the rest of the playoffs because you don't know how he's going to bounce back from that. I've seen the guy. I've seen him bounce back from a lot. He's already gone through a lot. So, like, when you make that move, I think Sullivan realizes this, too, that it may be the permanent move. So that's why he's going to hesitate until he actually either does it or doesn't do it.
Now,
conversely, it would take a lot to get Murray out of there. I think it would not just be Murray letting up 3 goals. I think the team, especially like you were saying, if it's the second period, try to get a momentum change. I think it has to be like the team's playing like crap in front of him. They weren't getting pressure in front of him. I mean, pressure against Vasilevsky. Like, it's just there's a lot. I think there has to be a lot going on for him to switch it up and put Fleury in there. Or your dog's barking over there, Russ?
Yeah. That's our newbie.
Oh.
Now conversely with Tampa, if Ben Bishop is physically ready, Ben Bishop is going back in. And that's
right.
that's not a commentary on Vasilevsky and how he's played, because he's played very well, but that just seems to be the dynamic. If Bishop can play, Bishop will be in.
But why? Why is it so different for these two? Their goalies are both playing the same. People talk about Bishop and Fleury in these situations like they're equals. Are we saying that they're not equals? Is that what this comes down
to? They're not equals. I mean, Marc-Andre Fleury's won a
like they are.
I know, but Marc-Andre Fleury's won a Stanley Cup and he's been to 2 Stanley Cups. Ben Bishop is not yet his equal, if he'll ever be.
Right, but you look at the track record of last year when Bishop had his injury problems. Vasilevsky came in, and when Bishop was capable of playing, even though he was limited, even though he was clearly hobbled, he came back in. They went with him. They went with him until they couldn't go with him any longer.
I don't think they would do that this year. I think Cooper probably learned from that, because not saying that Vasilevsky played fantastic, but he wasn't bad. But I think once they did that and brought in the injured goalie, then you sort of had that feeling that this could go bad. And so now I think Cooper's learned from that. If Vasilevsky were to pitch a shutout in this game and Ben Bishop's ready next game, Ben Bishop might still be on the bench.
Okay.
So my question is, why is he not playing Fleury? If Fleury is great and he's won a Stanley Cup, he's been to 2, why is he not playing him if he's healthy?
He's riding the hot hand right now. That's what it is.
Okay.
Murray's not giving him an excuse to pull him out. I mean, he's a 21-year-old goaltender who's playing with house money. And
I'm looking at it, and to me, it feels like they're not as confident in Fleury as everyone likes to admit in there.
No.
I'll tell you this. Right now, Matt Murray has done as much for Mike Sullivan as Marc-Andre Fleury has, because that's how new the resume is, and I think that's what he's going off of.
Right. It looks like Ryan Callahan will get back in the lineup. Victor Hedman did not take the morning skate, but he's expected to play tonight. Bishop did not skate. He skated before practice, but he will not be the backup. Christos Gudlevskis, could say that 5 times. He will be the backup for Vasilevsky. And Stamkos skated but will not play. Russ, you think that this is all John Cooper shell game stuff, and that Stamkos probably wouldn't play until it's an elimination situation?
Yeah, we kind of got suckered in on Sunday because everything seemed to be pointing Stamkos coming back, and I said, look, I'm surprised, but if it happens, it happens. I'm going to go with my original gut feeling that it's going to have to be an elimination game for Stamkos to get in there, because even though everybody's saying the right things, doing the right things, he hasn't played in a long time. And at the end of the day, there's still, even though they might have him on better medicine, there's still a bit of an unknown. And so, I just don't think you could just put him in to put him in. And like Mike said, when you put him in, you're going to have to put him in slowly, because you really don't know what he's going to have, and you don't want to upset the whole other team, all your other lines, in case he's not 100%. So I think they're waiting, and I think they're right to wait.
Yeah, I mean, I really think that when he does come back, he is not coming back in a top 6 role. They're not going to plop him on the line with Killorn and Drouin. That he's going to probably be, a role player, 4th line guy, and maybe play on the second power play. But they're not going to tax him too much, because he's been out for, I think, 6 weeks. And I mean, I know he skated the last week or so, but it's not the same as game action. So I think they're going to take it careful with him. I mean, I know he's going to be on blood thinners. Apparently, there's a blood thinner that he can play with. That's what's going on. So, But they may not play him until they absolutely have to. I'm sure he's itching to get in there, especially with the chance, possibility of winning the Stanley Cup. But, okay, great show, guys. We will be back tomorrow with another edition of the Hockey Buzzcast, and I'm sure Eklund will regale us with stories of hip-hop wonders on Broadway. For Jillian Fisher, for Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Thanks for watching, and remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.